Hello, folks. Dustin Zarni here, Commissioner in the Car. Today is, it's Monday. I do know it's that. It is January 24th, and I'm coming to you live from my car. I'm coming a little early because I'm on my way out to Manlius to get a there's a caucus going on tonight for the Manlius Village Caucus. So I'm headed to that. So this is going to be a quick Commissioner of the Car because I got a couple things going on. But the biggest thing that happened this last week, it happened on Friday, was Governor Hochul signed the bill extending the pandemic excuse for absentee ballots. So over the last 2 years, in 2020 and in 2021, you were able to use the temporary illness excuse to receive an absentee ballot because for risk of pandemic spread of disease, and that was a valid excuse in New York State for getting an absentee ballot. These were an executive order in 2020 and legislation in 2021 that expired at the end of 2021. Last year, as you know, Prop 4, which was no excuse absentee balloting, failed at the ballot box. The voters turned that down. And so with the rise of Omicron and COVID still being a reality, it became a necessity for the government to address this one way or another. And so, and with March village elections happening, just in less than 6 weeks, Governor Hochul and the legislature decided to pass another 1-year extension of this pandemic excuse for absentee ballot voting. So if you are wanting to vote by absentee this year and you're not temporarily ill or disabled, but you are at risk or feel you are at risk for pandemic spread of disease, then you do not have to go to the polls in person. You can vote by absentee, and that is illegal and valid and has already been, I believe, tested in the courts in New York State. And before anybody gets, crazy on this, this is a 1-year extension. It is not a permanent excuse going into 2023 and 2024, assuming that the COVID-19 pandemic has ended. Then this excuse will no longer be valid, and voters will still have to vote in person in New York at least until 2025 if another ballot measure comes into place and the voters approve it. So those are the restrictions in place. That's the new legislation that has been passed. And Michael Hunter says, "All hail the Queen, Hochul." She's not a queen. This was legislation that was passed. It was not executive order. She signed the legislation legally and valid, legislation. So the other things that are going on this week, Governor Hochul did release her executive budget for New York State. A lot of good news for elections in there. For the first time in recent memory, it fully funds the New York State Board of Elections. That's great. We depend on the New York State Board of Elections. So I'm really happy that that's being done. It also fully funds the Public Financing Board, which is a new board that's created at the State Board for the public financing campaign, the campaign for public financing for elections in New York State. So those states, agencies have huge responsibilities with automatic and online voter registration coming through and a lot of regulations responsibilities. So having the full budget that they requested and then some is very important. What was left out of the governor's budget is there was no direct funding for county boards of elections. And I'm not panicking about that because that's usually something that the legislators have added to the budget. Governor Cuomo never really seemed to bring direct funding for counties in his budgets. It was always brought by the Senate and the Assembly, so I'm hopeful that will be done. And then finally, there was just today news about the New York, and I'm putting this in air quotes for those of you listening on the pod, Independent Redistricting Commission. It's not an independent redistricting commission, but the New York Redistricting Commission released dueling statements today from the Democrats and Republicans, each of them blaming each other for the inability to come up with maps that they were going to submit to the legislature tomorrow. So what does that mean? That means the state lines of the New York State Senate and Assembly and the congressional lines will be drawn by the legislature. And with Democrats in veto-proof majorities inside the legislature, that means Democrats will be essentially in control of redistricting in New York State. Now, a few of you have brought up my stance about independent redistricting into this, and I have been very consistent. The New York Redistricting Commission is not an independent redistricting commission. It is not what I wanted in place 10 years ago. I was just a commissioner for 2 years at that point. I didn't have the megaphone I have now, but I backed the activists who were brought a lawsuit that said that the ballot question calling this an independent redistricting commission was false, and those activists won that lawsuit. I will say, even though the media still calls it an independent redistricting commission, it is not. It is political appointees. It is not citizen-led redistricting. That is the thing that is very much what I support. And yes, there is citizen-led redistricting statewide in California, in Michigan, and all over the country and other places. So that can be done in New York. It should be done in New York. But the voters did pass this redistricting process in 2014. It was a constitutional amendment. So I believe the legislature had an obligation to see it through and give the Independent Redistricting Commission, or the Independent, in quotes, Redistricting Commission, time to pass your time for this process to play out. But now the legislature will draw the lines, and if the Republicans feel those lines are drawn fairly, they will have the court. So what's the timeline on this? I don't know. I believe, boards of elections have said that February 14th is about what we need to get our data together to be ready for petitioning that will start 2 weeks later. So I would like them to pass it by February 14th. Sooner would be better as well. So hopefully this will jumpstart the process, and we will see some maps that have a chance of becoming law, because all the maps that have been sent out of the Redistricting Commission have been rejected by wide margins with the legislature, so they're definitely not going to pass anytime soon. So if we see these maps, then we should have those maps in place for canvassing and petitions by the beginning of March, early February. I believe March 1st is the day that petitions are supposed to start in New York. If we get those by February 14th, which it looks like, the legislature has all the tools in place to do that, then we should have those ready for them and ready for petitioning on March 1st. So we'll see how this goes over the next 2-3 weeks. And once that's done, then we'll know what the maps are, and I'm sure that there will be lawsuits. But the question is, what the final maps look like will determine whether those lawsuits are good or whether they are not. So that's what's going on for Commissioner Nakar. I'm actually entering a car wash right now, so I'm going to sign off and before it gets too loud in here. But thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, please drop a line. Go to DustinZarni.com. That is my website that I've set up for election news and all my content. Subscribe there, and you can get an email once a day or once a week, however you choose to get your content. It's always free, always will be. And please remember that the Omicron variant is still out there. COVID cases are still rising in Onondaga County. And although it looks like we're turning a corner in New York State, please wear your mask. Please get vaccinated, get your booster, and protect each other. Thank you very much, and enjoy your day. Bye-bye.